Welcome everybody for a wonderful presentation today featuring Kate Tagai from the Island Institute in Maine. We're really excited to be able to provide this wonderful leadership seminar. She has been rolling this out to a number of different groups, and we are excited to have her be able to provide this wonderful opportunity for us today. Today's webinar, by the way, is being brought to you by our friends at the Ottawa County Community Foundation. They were one of our sponsors for the summit last year that was postponed, but they were willing to stay with us and be able to help us provide this wonderful webinar opportunity this year. So again, thanks to Ottawa County Community Foundation, doing good forever. They're located just about 10 miles from where I live here in South Bass. So here's the schedule for today. It's going to move along pretty well. I just want to make sure that you get a chance to see what's going on here before we start. We'll have a little intro first, and then Kate will speak. And then what we're going to do is we're going to randomly break into groups of 5 people or so to be able to go through a process of doing a specific activity. Then we'll get back together, we'll talk about it, we'll debrief, and then we'll close the webinar. So the exact amount of time that all these things take is always a little bit flexible, but basically here's the outlining of today's activities. Now, I'd also like to take this next opportunity to introduce you to Mike Gora from Middle Bass Island. Mike's going to talk to you a little bit about the Great Lakes Islands Alliance.
Well, I'd sure. First of all, I'd like to repeat Peter's welcome to our first GLIA webinar at the beginning of a series that we think will interest many islanders and many of our other friends. Our focus is to help islands to help each other, and our mission statement is to encourage relationship building, foster information exchange, and leverage resources to address shared challenges and embrace opportunities to benefit islands. And we found that when members from our different islands get together in any way, they have a lot of interesting topics to talk about. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. Well, I'd like to start with some brief GLIA history. In 2016, we were having the 6th or 7th annual meeting of a group called the Lake Erie Islands International Consortium, a group of the 4 Lake Erie Islands now in GLIA. Matt Pricer and John Allen from Michigan joined that meeting and discussed the idea of a larger group of Great Lakes islands. That group became GLIA, which had 13 island members from 4 Great Lakes in its first year, 2017, and now has about 150 members from 19 island communities in all 5 Great Lakes as of the end of last year. Next slide. GLIA supports and promotes resilient, vibrant, sustainable island communities through a number of activities related to environmental protection and growing our social and economic institutions. This webinar series is one example of our efforts to connect islanders with leading subject matter experts from around the region and beyond. The photos here are from our annual island summits, which rotate to a different island every year. Next slide. And now I'm pleased to introduce our featured speaker today. Kate Tagai is a senior community development officer at the Islands Institute in Rockland, Maine. She has spent 8 years working with island and coastal leaders in Maine to build community resiliency. Through network development, training, and a fellowship program, she also has experience working with leaders across many sectors. Before joining the Island Institute, Kate worked with island community leaders implementing conservation and development plans in the South Pacific country of Vanuatu. And with that, welcome, Kate.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, GLIA, for inviting me here today to talk about leadership. If you are not familiar with the Island Institute, we are a community development organization located on the coast of Maine. We've been working on the coast with the Maine Islands and now have expanded to the coast for the last 35 years. So we have a long history of doing community development work with a focus of helping our island communities and really supporting them with the needs. So we do a lot at the Island Institute. We have a lot of different focuses. And over the course of our 35 years, there are some themes that arose, one of them being leadership. No matter what challenges our community faced, leadership was at the core of them in helping create innovative solutions, in helping navigate through whether it was changes in the lobster fishery, changes in the seas, changing climate, if it was housing crisis, if it was budget shortages in the municipality, if it was the changing real estate landscape because of a pandemic that made everyone want to move to Maine. Leaders are really the core in helping to navigate through these challenges. And the way we think about leaders is not only those who hold positions of authority like town managers or select board members, but really anyone in the town who is supporting those folks to do their work, the voters who are showing up, the students in the school, anyone within the community, because we know small communities are really interconnected. And so when we started to really think about leadership and dig into the literature around leadership, look at how other people were talking about it, look over our 35-year history of working with leaders and the experience that we had at our organization, we really distilled that learning down into some core skills that leaders need, whether they are actually driving the ship or whether they are providing the support. So what I'm showing you now is a graphic that we developed over the course of this research. And this is our framework. And it applies both to the individual, at the team level, and at the organizational level. So organizations can be leaders. At the Island Institute, we often strive to be a leader and pave the way for other folks to do things. We, in our teams, talk about leadership. And with individuals, we strive to develop individual leadership skills. So this graphic, which is our tool, is really the starting point for the conversations that we have around leadership. And it underpins all of the work that we do at the Institute, whether or not it's working directly with leaders, working with schools, working with ferry captains and the blue economy. We talk about leadership as the base of it. So in developing this project, our goals were really to create a tool that we could use to help catalyze some of these conversations. We wanted to have a focal point where we could have conversations around leadership, really think deliberately about what it takes to become a great leader, and use those tools to help develop leadership skills. Because as I said, leadership is really what helps us get through these challenges. And the challenges don't seem to be going away. So we want to really empower community leaders to see themselves as leaders, whether or not they hold positions of authority. Because I don't know about in the Great Lakes, but in the Maine Islands, succession planning is always a big topic of conversation. Who's the leader coming up? Who's going to take over this committee? Who's going to spur on these ideas? Who's going to tackle this challenge? So to do that, we need young folks to really think about themselves as leaders and think about what skills they can bring to their community to help navigate some of these things. And we want to create a discussion around leadership and celebrate leaders. So often the work is work and leaders don't get celebrated, but we really wanted to be able to lift up and celebrate leaders who are and tell their stories. And at the Island Institute, we have several media arms that allow us to do that. We have a newspaper that is the largest newspaper in the state of Maine. It goes to everybody's mailbox who's an Islander. And it tells island stories. So using our newspaper, we're able to really celebrate innovative ideas of a leader. The other tool that we have is a solutions library, where we take really interesting ideas and ideas that have worked in a place, and we highlight them and celebrate them. And we do that so that other folks in other remote and rural places who have similar challenges can read about that and the story and the way that the leader or the organization or the team has navigated their challenges, and think about how it could apply to their own situation and how they might take some of those ideas and bring them into their own community. So our long-term vision and the thing that we are working for across the organization is that Maine's island and coastal communities are really invested in creating strong leadership, maintaining social resilience through times of change, because our times are changing, and that won't change. So I'm going to show you a short video. The voice you hear is the voice of my colleague, Karen Burns. And she's going to really walk you through how this tool works. So I thought this was a pretty easy way of showing you how the framework works.
So now I'm going to demonstrate for you how the interactive web tool works. If we go to the Island Institute website, www.islandinstitute.org, and look under our priorities, you can see leadership is right here. Click on leadership and it will bring you to the resilient leadership framework that we've discussed. And in this framework, this is an interactive tool where you can click on any piece of this wheel to get more information and real life examples. So if I want to learn more about developing effective connections and relationships, I can click right here and see a descriptor of what this competency is. I also have examples at the individual, team, and community level of people who have developed effective connections and relationships. So let's look at an individual. This brings you to an example of a North Haven Island outreach worker who's done a tremendous job connecting elders with resources and connecting herself with the elder community and with those resources. And what you can do is read about her experience and actually have a Q&A with her about her experience and the work that she does. And so that's one example at the individual level. Let's go back. If we want to learn about, say, innovates and encourages innovation, we can look here. We can actually see some more information about what it means to innovate and encourage innovation. And say we want to figure out a team that innovates and encourages innovation. We can click on this button and we learn about the Outer Islands Teaching and Learning Collaborative. This is a group of 1- and 2-room schoolhouse teachers who work together to innovate and allow their students to be connected, even though they live on islands up and down the coast. So in this, there's videos, there is a step-by-step guide, there is a Q&A to learn more about what this innovative group has done and the steps they've needed in order to be innovative in their work. So those are just 2 examples of how the tool works, and you can see that we have examples from all parts of the wheel, all 7 competencies, and also at all 3 levels for those competencies. So I hope you will take some time and check it out.
So we've dropped the link to this leadership framework in the chat. The 7 skills, I'll just read them out very quickly so that you can hear them as well as be able to see them. But they're that leaders practice self-awareness. So understanding your own strengths, develop effective connections and relationships, that they communicate effectively, that they promote engagement. So engagement of groups, deepen the understanding of what the group's goal is and they're trying to achieve, and that everybody is working towards the same outcome. Leaders influence change, that they not only create a vision for what that change is, but they inspire others and promote engagement for others to join them. They navigate systems, so they understand how the municipal system works or how the system, how to build a network. They are able to navigate the systems that they're working within, depending on what those systems are. And they innovate and encourage innovation. So they think to the future. They think about what's coming, what they might need to adapt or adjust to, and then think about what they can do today to be resilient. You'll see that the design of this wheel, which was designed by our very capable media team, is very deliberate in that it flows into each other, that the colors really blend. And part of that is because these skills really blend into each other, that there are discrete skills within each of these competencies, but they overlap, that effective communication helps you to influence change. Influencing change helps you to be innovative. Being aware of yourself as a leader or your team or your organization as a leader helps you to navigate systems and develop relationships. So they're all very much interconnected skills. What we have done with these is that we've created some tools around them that can be found on our website, where we just launched this last year. So this tool is very new. We're still developing a lot of those tools. So what we're doing is we're collecting stories. We're working with our communities here in Maine to have deliberate conversations about leadership, to come in and work with teams to make sure that they're working effectively, to suggest ways that they could work more effectively with each other to get the work done. So we're putting this into practice right now. So what I'm sharing with you is a live in development tool. It is a living thing. We designed it to try and be radically useful, was the phrase. We didn't just want to design something that was academic or design something that would sit on the shelf. We really wanted it to be used, to be helpful to the communities and the leaders that we're working with. So the question in the chat, are there ones that are more important than others? The reason that we have it in a wheel and not as a hierarchy, the reason that we don't have 1, 2, 3, or 4, is that we see these 7 competencies as being integrally connected, that there's not one that's more important than the others. And the leaders that we work with, some of them are really strong in one area and not in the other. And the idea is that if they don't have a strength within this wheel, that at the team level, they're able to find somebody who does have that strength and work with them as part of their team. So if I'm not really great at promoting engagement, but I'm great at communicating, I can find someone on my team who's really great at promoting engagement, and we can work together with our strengths. So it's about having those open conversations about what the strengths are and how they can be combined. Yeah, so with that, there are some questions in the chat. And before I ask us to engage with this tool as a tool and actually try and have some conversations around it, Matt has put some questions in the chat. Was there anything about this tool that surprised you? Is there anything that you're thinking about leadership and you have questions about? You can go ahead and put your questions in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them. So Matt says, can you explain what I mean by systems? What I mean by systems in terms of navigate systems, Matt? Like when in the competency, when it says navigate systems?
Yeah, specifically that one, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So when we say navigate systems, what we mean by that is that people know how to work, basically. So the best way to explain that, I think, is through an example. We're right now running a series that is aimed at young leaders. And one of the things that we have in talking with young leaders in their communities, these are high school students, and they said, well, we don't really know how to be involved in our municipal government. We don't really know how it works. We go to these meetings, we have things to say, but their meetings are really formal. They use this code that we don't really understand. And we said, oh, that's Robert's Rules of Order. There are rules governing these meetings. They have, standards and procedures and protocols around them. We can show you how those work. We can talk you through how those meetings work and when you're allowed to speak and on what topic you're allowed to speak and how you get something on an agenda to be able to speak at a meeting outside of public comment areas. So being able to navigate the system of their municipal government meant that they were able to bring their issues, for example, getting solar power into their community and promoting a project that they had in their school, they were able to effectively bring that to their community so their selectmen could vote on it and discuss it. They didn't get very far before that because they didn't really know how the system worked. So that's what we mean by navigating systems. If I go into a fishing community and I don't know how lobster licenses work, and I'm trying to work with, lobstermen, I need to know how lobster licenses work and how people get them. If a new person comes in and says, I want to be a fisherman, they have to know how to navigate that licensing system and to navigate sort of the unspoken systems and the cultural systems that are in place to be able to be successful. So that's what we mean by navigating systems. How long has it taken us to collect all the real life examples of leadership that we've included on our website? It has taken us, our solutions library is actually about 10 years old, not quite 10 years old. It was started around the same time that I came to the Institute. So we've been collecting stories that are there for about 8 years, but we are a storytelling organization. We've had our newspaper for 30 years. We've had our Island Journal, which tells island stories for about 30 years. So we've been collecting these stories and thinking, how do we use them? How do we share them? This is what we do at the Island Institute. We collect people's stories and we amplify them. We share them out to say, these are great examples of things that are working, because that's really important. Yes, no, it isn't easy to get a lobster license. That is true. Excellent. So if you have other questions as we go along, feel free to share them, to message me. But at the moment, we're going to ask you to try this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to break you into groups like Peter mentioned earlier. We're going to break you into small groups because we have about 40 people in this room, and to have a conversation with 40 people in a limited amount of time can be very cumbersome. So we're going to break you up into smaller groups so you can really have a chance to talk with each other and get to know each other and talk about leadership. And this is what we ask our leaders in Maine to do. We realize that some of you might know each other, some of you probably won't. You'll probably be in a room with strangers, which can be fairly intimidating. So the first thing we'll ask you to do is introduce yourself and your island to the people you're in the room with. We're not going to give you a whole lot of time, so these have to be pretty quick. The second thing is that I will put the link to our leadership framework back in the chat. It might be helpful to have in front of you as you think about this. But think about the skills that are in the leadership framework. Is there one that you really resonate with? That one that you think, I have a really great example. I have a really great story about this that I have seen, about this skill being used by a leader. So I want you to think about a story that relates to one of these competencies and share it with the people in your group. So that's what we're asking you to do. And if you want to think about, as you're telling your story, as you're listening to other people's stories of leadership, if you also want to think about how you might bring this back to your island and how you might introduce this to your leaders back on your island, that would be great too. So we're going to ask you to introduce yourself and then talk about a story around one of these competencies in leadership where you've seen a strong example of this being put into use. All right, seems like just about everybody is back. Yeah, so thank you for willing to, some of you may have done breakout rooms before, some of you might not have had that experience. And when you sign up for a webinar, you're not always prepared for an interactive feature, but I find that being able to talk about leadership and just think about the ideas helps settle it a little bit better. So thank you for being willing to participate in that way. We have a few minutes that I've left out. If folks could mute now that they're back in the big room, what we're gonna do is in the next 10 minutes, if there was a story that you really want to share with the group, or a reflection that you have, or a way that you want to bring this back to your community that you want to share out as a great idea for others to think about. We left some time for us to learn a little bit about what we talked about in the breakout rooms. So if you want to share, raise your hand, and Rob will invite you to unmute and share your stories. Oh, come on. There must have been a great leader that was highlighted in a story somewhere.
And I'll also say, if somebody just wants to unmute themselves, you can feel free to do so, or at the bottom of the screen, you'll find the ability to raise your hand.
All right, I'll go. No one, no. Oh, actually, Phyllis. Let's let Phyllis go.
I think that we've had a lot of leadership done individually just by people who care. There's no voting or anything, but Lori Miller since the very first GLIA meeting, Lori's been trying to do establish a history. There was a club here for history, and it was not at all usable, and so now she's been trying to revitalize that, and that really has huge people following. My gosh, all over the United States. And it's just a little Facebook page, but it has brought people together. I think that's leadership. I think, people from all over have been submitting pictures. It really gives a feeling of identity to the Islanders, because they can see. And I think that's leadership. It's been a great success. We've been also trying to redo our community center, because it's our center. And the island's very small, very old building, substandard. The township's been allowing us and supporting part of it. And we did a campaign to raise money, and people from all over sent in money to get our building up to par so we could use it in the winter, because we haven't been able to do anything. And people don't like to go to other people's houses if they don't climb stairs well, or if they would like to have a more neutral place. So we've been trying really hard to bring it together, but it does take time and a lot of dedication.
Yes, Phyllis, you said something about leadership being done by people who care. I think that is a really strong sentiment about how leadership unfolds in our small communities. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Matt, did you want to share?
I was going to say one more thing, but we did, and it took 2 years, is we made a directory for the island. And we sent out letters to everybody, because Matt, in the first meeting, had said, you have to be able to have, work on history, and you have to develop a center. So we've been sending out, we sent out a huge mailing the last 2 years in a row. People send in donations, but we try to let them know what's going on the island. And we made a directory. That was hard. It took 2 years trying to get everybody's phone numbers and medical information, how to access medical information for people that came. It's like 42 pages. And I think it was well received. We have a problem. We dial 911 for emergency, and we get Canada. And then you waste all your time trying to tell Canada that we have an emergency. And so,
I think earlier Matt had asked what's a example of navigating systems, and I think that's a great example of navigating systems, creating a directory to be able to
it's
contact
huge.
people. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have a great example that they want to jump in and share from their island?
You know, I've got something. This is Wendy. If I could share with really quick, and it's just going to jump right on Phyllis and is it Patty? So this is a perspective from a resident of Nevis Island. So got in there, some property, and just a couple of years ago, and we got a what was it called? Like an invitation basket. The ladies came to the cabin, brought a basket with the directory, and gave it to my sister. And we were like, oh my gosh, what in the world is this? It's just so helpful. It was very much, we felt like it was a real big sense of community. And now being on the Facebook page has just been great. I've seen the work and the dedication of getting that community center fixed up. And that was part of the reason why I came to the group. Why I registered today, because I thought, I wonder if this is something. I didn't know other people were going to be here. I didn't want to miss the opportunity, and I wanted to be able to share with people there on the, residents on the island, our Phyllis and Patty. So, and if I can work this into, what I do for a living, my job. But just wanted to share how much that's really important with the Facebook. When you say the leadership and the directory, it's phenomenal.
Excellent. Thank you, Wendy, for reaffirming that and giving us your perspective on how that is leadership. I think that's absolutely right. Yeah. I think we have time for one more story. Don't all jump at once. Matt, did you want to share something?
I will, and I'm going to highlight the people in my group. So they're being shy, but the group of 4 or 5 that I was in, and of course right now is when my dog is barking. Sorry about that. Lots of great examples, and my general observation is that these stories, these successes, these solutions don't have to be overly complex. And to give a few more, Diane and Judy and Patty and my group gave really, really important solutions that are really simple. So Diane and Judy mentioned on their island, it's hard to get services. And the simple act of creating a list of service providers at a central meeting place has been successful. And then Patty talked about on her island, trying to bring people together, that there's a lot of people out there that maybe want to help but don't know how to do it or how to connect. And so she's interested in setting up some coffee chats or coffee dates as a regular reoccurring meeting to bring people together. And so thinking of your pinwheel, that's the promoting engagement and connections and relationships. And so these examples are not rocket science. It's not anything very expensive or complex to do, but it takes a leader to just pull the trigger and do something really simple, and it'll have meaningful outcomes.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, I was one quick thing that early on in the chat box, somebody asked if your tool is available all the time, and I just thought maybe you might promote the fact that it's always available online, correct?
Yes, that is actually a great segue just to wrap up this part of the conversation. That I wanted to say, I am also available. Our tool is online. Whenever you want to use it, it's on our website. And I will grab the link and share it again, just so you don't have to scroll back through the chat. But our leadership framework is available on our website. We are working with media to make the linkages even clearer for why we've chosen the examples we've chosen. And we're always looking for stories to help fill out our solutions library and to highlight leaders. So if you have a great story that you talked about today, please send it my way. Please, reach out to me, have a conversation. We would love to be able to get more examples in our solutions library, because that's really what's underpinning that framework and showing the strength of these skills and, the resiliency of the leaders that we have. So it is on our website. We also have the Island Institute and our leadership team who is behind it and can help you think through if you want to, bring this to your community and apply it. We can share some of our experiences and help you think through ways to bring it to your community and some tools that we've used and found helpful. So feel free to reach out to me. And with that, I will pass it back to Peter.
All right. Well, again, my name's Peter, and I'm the new project manager for the Great Lakes Islands Alliance. We are looking forward to being able to do a lot more of this, as well as to be able to facilitate conversations among our islands. And I will be spending part of this next year trying to visit every one of our islands as we go around and try to share conversations and solutions that we've started to be able to get to, with everybody. Again, you can see on the screen here my email, phouston@stewardshipnetwork.org. And of course, Mike Gora has done a great job of putting our website together at GLIAalliance.org, and we're on Facebook. Please friend us on Facebook and share our comments we put out there almost every day at GLIA Alliance. And if you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me. And the information is on the website to get in touch with us. And again, I want to thank the Ottawa County Community Foundation for providing the funds to be able to make this a success. And thanks to Rob, who is our technical guru in the back room, making all of the things work for us today. And especially a big thanks to Kate from the Island Institute for making this possible. Thank you again, everybody. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 months when we do our next webinar about birding. So stay tuned.
Well, thank you, GLIA, for inviting me. This was great.
Thanks, Kate.